Hello and welcome to Grow Conversations, your window into the world of medical cannabis here in the United Kingdom. My name is Alex Fraser, and on today's episode we have Greg Dobbin and James Smith from 4C Labs. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alex, for having us.
It's fantastic to have you guys here. 4C Labs have been making waves here in the United Kingdom's medical cannabis industry for a little bit now. Let's find out a little bit more about the company and about you guys yourselves as well. So if I can start with you, Greg, you're CEO. Yes?
Today,
as it stands.
see how it goes.
See where we're at by the end of the episode.
Yeah, exactly.
But could you tell me a little bit about your background and what led you to work into the cannabis industry?
Interestingly, I worked in film for a long time. The industry that was destroyed by Donald Trump in an hour the other day. And you know, it's a great business to work in. There's some really amazing people. I've worked in London before, all over Europe, Asia, LA, New York, lots of different places. Sounds glamorous, but at the end of the day, it's a lot of hard work. And you know, you put in a lot of time doing it and you spend, 14 to 18 hours a day. Any film people know this, with your best mates. And then one day you wake up and think to yourself, my God, I don't know if I can do this anymore. And that for me was really kind of what happened. So I joined up with James and the team. And at the time we were looking at licenses in Colombia, which was an interesting, thought, way ahead of its time, and maybe that time will never come, where you could produce a low-cost product in a low-cost environment in high volumes and then ship it to these amazing markets all over the world that did not exist. And then we kind of moved on from there. So that was my transition, film to the medical cannabis business. And I think the other bit that I thought was really interesting was that when you look at Canada and what's happened in Canada, we had a medical system that was rolled out that came kind of on in earnest in 2014, but no one was really ever setting it up to be a medical business. Everybody knew in the background it was going to switch to rec. So the government didn't really spend time with doctors and pharmacists and people in the medical community and with patients to try and understand how to build a system where people could use medical cannabis for what its main purpose is, which is for medical reasons. And the net result is they basically built a rec medical business. And one of the things that I personally find fascinating, and I know James does, is the tremendous opportunity that exists for medical cannabis and other alternative medicines to help people with their day-to-day health problems. You have, in the UK, you have the largest proportion of people per capita on the planet of any country in the world taking opioids in the UK over any other country, which is an interesting stat. Googleable, you can Google it and see that.
I didn't know that. I didn't know we were number one.
And as America and Canada and other countries have stepped back as a result of all the suing that's gone on, the UK has pushed into the forefront. And when you think about medical cannabis the possibilities of medical cannabis shown in clinical study to help with pain, you also at the same time potentially improve people's lives, because as we know, taking opioids your entire life is tough on your body. Yeah. So those are the bits that I found interesting about it, and that's why I thought making a switch to medical cannabis could be a great kind of bunch of time spent in your life working on something that has the potential to help people.
Fantastic, amazing. Well, there's quite a few things we'll come back and I'll touch on there. But James, if you could let us know a little bit about yourself and your career trajectory into this space.
Well, there was once a time when I was a filmmaker, but I left that many years ago and went into real estate, commercial, residential, farms. You name it, I sold it, restaurants. The end of my career was primarily investment work, working with investors, which is rather joyless, except for the paycheck and the commission fees. Then my children were getting older and I felt like I could maybe strike out and do something on my own that would be more rewarding than selling apartment buildings to very wealthy people. So an opportunity came up to look at working in the Colombian environment. And very clearly, Greg and I sort of used that as a means of, and Greg would always say, this is a R&D. We're in R&D, we're learning about this market. So I attended conferences around the world for years until COVID stopped that from being a possibility. And in the process of doing that, we recognized that the market in the UK was the market for us for a whole host of reasons. You speak English, there's a rule of law, we're Canadian, you have similar regulatory frameworks, there's a level of sort of things get done without corruption. You can do things without corruption, and I think we're proof of that because we've achieved a set of licenses on our own merits with not a lot of money, and didn't have to bribe anybody in the process. So I think I personally, I've been living over here for 5 years between initially Guernsey, and then Guernsey, London, and now London full time, and I love working here. But we recognize that there was an opportunity because when I first arrived here 6 years ago, illicit cannabis, this has changed, and I'm sure you can agree with that. Product was not very good. It was a lot more expensive than it currently is. And I felt that there was an opportunity to bring the best of Canada, the best of British Columbia, which is where I was from at the time, to the medical patients of the United Kingdom. And because I knew many people who had been growing medical cannabis under the original system, which started in 2001, when you were Grow Your Own program. And I knew a number of breeders that had empirical success with the British Columbia Compassion Club, which was founded by Hilary Black and others, which was the result of a lawsuit. The original, I think it is the oldest serving Compassion Club clinic in North America. And I know a number, certainly one of the oldest, and has been around for almost 30 years now. Mm-hmm. And I know a number of growers that were selling products through that system under their own licenses. They were acting as designated growers. And the product quality in British Columbia has historically always been very high because of the high number of producers of illicit growers, the low cost of electricity, the fact that there's a gazillion valleys you can hide in with a small farm and you're left alone.
This is known for it, isn't it? The BC bud.
Combine that with a collapse in the natural resource sector in the mid-90s alongside the three strikes laws you're out in California, and you had an explosion of illicit cannabis cultivation in British Columbia in the 90s. And the introduction of the Gavita lights in the mid-80s sort of made that all possible, but they're expensive to run, and the cost of electricity in British Columbia is very low, as is the rest of Canada. At the time, pre-9/11, the border was effectively open. If you wanted to be naughty, there was a lot of movement of goods. So we knew that we had people that could do the growing part of it and act as suppliers, and we could see that there was a market that was longing for a higher quality product. At the time, that has changed. There's certainly much higher quality product available in the UK today. And we just felt that this is an adventure. Let's go do something interesting. I got a text today or an email today from a patient that had commented on a product that we have sold in the market and was highly complimentary to it. And, that feels better than any real estate transaction, if I'm honest. So, that's effectively why I came in, trying to make a difference and hopefully not go bankrupt in the process.
Right, brilliant. I mean, it sounds like you've had these previous careers in both in film and then in real estate yourself in other places, and then you've realised that the potential of this to help people ultimately is what's drawn you in. And I mean, you've spoken quite a bit there about Canada and the sort of the history of cannabis legalization through Canada, and then you've ended up here focused on the UK. Was it always the UK, or was there other thoughts to Germany, Australia, or maybe even setting up in Canada?
We had a look. We had a look at Canada. It was kind of late in the game to start that. The United States has a very unclear regulatory environment, and compounded by the arrival of the Orange Monster. And then when we looked in South Africa, we looked in Portugal, we looked in Malta. Mm-hmm. That's a fool's errand.
We had licenses in Malta.
We had licenses in Malta, which we sold, thankfully.
Yeah.
Was that before it was fully legal then?
No, just after legalization.
I think we were the second or third license in Malta.
Oh, wow.
So we spent a lot of time looking in different areas. We looked in Denmark, and really what it came down to was just looking at the set of regulations that existed in the UK and seeing the potential for success there as a result of that, and the fact that the UK has a system that is geared towards medical rather than medical that drifts over to rec, and that, I think that's the thing that attracted us to it.
It's pretty medical, the UK system. I think there are potentially people who are throwing accusations, I think, at the industry that there's a sort of about catering to recreational markets and things like that. What would you say to that?
So, I mean, I'm a patient for a variety of mental and physical health reasons. Have been using cannabis regularly for decades and decades. And some people would say that the wife, the mother of my children, would just point outside when I come home from work and just be like, "Don't even talk to me. Go to the boat shed. Come back when you're not going to be. When you're going to be
Have some cannabis, basically.
You're going to be even.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I think when you look at the UK market and you look at the regulations and you look at what can be prescribed for, the reason why I mention that is I think that the regulations themselves are actually pretty straightforward and some of the most permissive in the world in terms of what you can be prescribed for in the process. I think where it becomes complicated has been historically the pricing of access to clinics. I think we've had an issue with some pricing around products. There have been questions about product quality and its ability to compete with the illicit market. Mm-hmm. I feel like a lot of those things have changed through the work that your company does, the work that our company does. And I feel like there are millions of medical cannabis users in this country who are using it for a variety of reasons, and they're currently, they're purchasing the product from the illicit market.
Yeah.
Now, I'm somebody that purchased product from the illicit market for many years myself in Canada. I grew a very small scale outdoor production for myself for my own medical needs, and there's a reason to use this medicine. Clearly, people are finding benefit from it. So we would like to see a greater awareness in this country. I think awareness is probably the main issue. Mm-hmm. And then when you look at what you're getting in the illicit market, if we could do some testing on illicit market product, I think we'd probably find, unless it's been grown by a master in a small room with mm-hmm. proper ventilation mm-hmm. and all of the things that you should have in terms of creating safety around the plant and lack of mold and bugs and all the other things that can happen to a plant, which is many. I think we'd find that medical cannabis, the certificates of analysis of the products that you bring in and that we bring in, is vastly superior to what you would get from an illicit market mm-hmm. product in mm-hmm. terms of the contaminants, in terms of the heavy metals, in terms of the pesticides and other products that are used on them. I don't think the public who is accessing the black market really understands what's in their cannabis. Mm-hmm. It's very common for illicit market growers to use chemicals and sprays that would be used in the cut flower industry, for example, to prevent pests or mold from occurring, but are not designed for human consumption, which is where they end up. Mm-hmm. So I think that we as an industry can offer many things, right? We can offer safety in the product, we can offer safety from persecution, the law, and losing your flat, losing your driver's license. There's many benefits, and I would suggest that awareness is our biggest challenge right now. Yeah. And fortunately, these kinds of conversations will help hopefully slowly change that.
Absolutely, that's what we're here to do, to put shine a light on this industry. I think show that it's real as well. I think a lot of the skepticism or potentially lack of awareness is because we're a fully digital industry. All the clinics are digital, all the medicines are posted direct to patients' doors. You never actually have a face-to-face conversation with anybody. So we're doing that now. We're having these face-to-face conversations and showing people that you're real people and you're not just some guy in his not bots, but you're also not some guy in his back room growing some, you're going and sourcing. And we'll talk about awareness a little bit later on, but I'd love to hear more about how you do what you do and how you source products essentially. What do you...
I'll add a little bit at the beginning.
Okay.
And then James, you can chat about it because James is an expert on all of these things.
Any complete secret sauces.
No, of course not. I mean, the thing that's great about James is that his understanding of cannabis, the plant, medical cannabis, use cases, the reasons why one thing is better than another, all of that is world class. There aren't many people that have his level of knowledge, and I think it really shines when we are sourcing product and then when we're having conversations with doctors and patients and pharmacists, is that we collectively, through James, can speak with authenticity and authority on the products that we're bringing in and on the other products that are in the market because he has a great knowledge of it. And I think that when you look at how we've laid this out, we've made a real effort to simplify the process. We have 5 categories of flower. The reason we have 5 categories of flower is because they're all grown differently. And you get a better bang for your buck all the way through. But at the end of the day, you are able to adjust your budget and still get efficacy if you're using flower. And then one of the other things that we've done is we've just been looking at universally easier to use, more convenient product forms that mimic the types of effects you get from flower that are in product forms that are easily consumable. And that ties in, drifting a little off the topic, but that ties in with developing products and developing processes that doctors, pharmacists, and patients can understand, so doctors can meaningfully prescribe something. And I'll just give an example. So if you are, basically what I'm saying is the sourcing in the program that we set up leads to something. And what it leads to is if, for example, you are a woman that is in perimenopause, menopause, or postmenopause, what are some of the symptoms you have? Now, I'm not going to pretend that I know anything about this, but I have plenty of anecdotal evidence from conversations around our household and other places. And so a lot of people have trouble sleeping. So what's the typical thing prescribed to a woman who goes to see her family physician? Benzodiazepine, an opioid, and an antidepressant, or hormone replacement therapy. There you go, take your pick. Well, that's not a very good tickle trunk. 3 of those products are highly addictive, and you can develop a lifetime of health issues as a result, but medical cannabis does not enter into that conversation yet. So I think that's an important thing for us, is to make sure that we are working at sourcing products that we constantly keep an eye on for medicinal benefits that will work in specific scenarios, that are supported by studies, that GPs and specialist physicians and prescribing nurses and pharmacists generally can look at and understand that if I prescribe this to a person, it's going to have efficacy, and here's the data to back it up. And I think that's something we're working towards. But I'm drifting off the topic of product sourcing, which is James's expertise.
Yeah, so ultimately the goal would be able to generate large volumes of low-cost medicines that we know that a certain combination of cannabinoids and terpenes, if they could be recognized as such, could produce a consistent set of efficacy for patients. Now, that's the dream. That's a long way away.
Yeah.
In the interim, sourcing material is, well, we're Canadian. Greg lives in Canada on the West Coast, so he's on the time zone for the whole country. Canada is a giant place, as we all know. It's massive. It takes 7 hours basically to fly across the country practically. And so we source products by targeting companies that we think have a combination of supply chain stability and that offer what we consider to be an excellent value proposition, so that we can deliver those products to the patients in the UK at the best price we possibly can, because we recognize that pricing is sensitive and pricing is important to the people consuming the medicine. So we try our best to keep everything as low cost as we can, whilst also trying to find what we deem to be the highest quality medicine we can for the price point. So we have a team in Canada that does this. We have a Canadian coordinator. We have a number of people working in product development. We have kind of a secret weapon in our head of product development who visits the facilities. We test. There's not a product in the market here from Canada that we haven't tested already.
Sure.
Whether that's our products or the products that are brought in by other people, we've tried everything. We write reports on all those products for internal use, and which we hope to turn into studies. And so we reject, I would say, 3/4 plus of what we review. Sometimes that's a price issue. Sometimes that's a supply chain issue. Sometimes that's a quality issue. And we try to focus in on, as Greg noted, a number of price points, because people have different budgets. People have different demands that they expect from the product. They have different demands on what the product looks like or smells like. Some people are only concerned with the efficacy. Other people are very concerned with what is commonly known as bag appeal, nose, appearance. That's the reality of the medicine that we work with. So we have to focus in on trying to make sure that I'd refer to it as fresh, frosty, fragrant, fabulous.
4 Fs. I was going to ask you what the 4 Cs are in 4C, which we'll get to, but there you go, the 4 Fs of...
Yeah, so that's
sourcing fire.
That's what we try to do, and we've with our partners in Canada and in the UK, we've managed to find a way to bring products in more efficiently and faster than we had first been able to do. So it's really about trying to, the baseline, and it's really the team. It's Greg keeping things in stock. It's Sam who's organizing everything in this side of the country. It's Bond in Canada. It's Charlie in Canada. I mean, it's a true team effort. And without each one of these team members is absolutely integral to the success of it. And, we just want to, the baseline for success is we have to exceed expectations. We have to do better than people are expecting. Now it will change, because once you do that, then that becomes their new baseline. I was going to say
that's continuously more difficult.
Yeah, you're putting yourself in a difficult position, but we believe that, the market will sophisticate itself, that there's very specific reasons why we bring in very specific products and why we do things at specific price points. There is a complete logic to it, which obviously I cannot speak to because that would be deemed marketing and promotion. But it feels like the patients are responding in a positive way, so we're happy about that.
Well, I think the other bit too, and you touched on it in terms of our processes at the beginning. Anytime we work with somebody new, there's a conversation. Then there's a product test, in-person product test that goes out to a group of 5 or 6 people, comes back, collated in a report that James mentioned. Once that's complete and we say, okay, this works, there's a facility visit. We go and see the facility, we test the product again, we look at the plants, the building, the layout, we talk to the head grower, we talk to the people in the trim room. We do a great job of just trying to understand the general vibe of the place. Then once the first time that product is available to us, and every time after that, every single shipment is inspected in person. Like 4C Labs staff member is there, they'll look at the shipment, they clear it, then it goes through our process and ends up in the UK. So we spend a lot of time making sure that everything is exactly as it should be. And we've, there's some places we've been back to 4 times before we've agreed to take it.
And we have made some boo-boos. We've made some boo-boos, whether that was a lot that was missed in the review, but we're continuously striving with the quality department, our quality and compliance department, with the other quality and compliance departments to address those concerns, whether it's patients concerned around sizing or lack of nose. We're always trying to address those issues and trying to improve upon them. So it's not like, oh, we found this way of doing it, now it's just like easy. No, it's just
not so easy. Well, and I think it'll never get easy because you can never stop quality control. You can always do better. You can always do more. And then the other side is, James talked a little bit about the operations and that team, but on the quality side, we have a full team on the quality side, and they're amazing. They keep us absolutely on the nose in terms of all our paperwork. We have an uneditable compliance system that is now likely thousands of pages long that James and I couldn't possibly begin to understand, even if we took a university course on it. And yet they are completely fluent in it and keep us completely in line with all our paperwork, reporting, auditability, et cetera. So, and that, that's one of the other things you read about. Oh, well, you can buy vapes in the illicit market in the United Kingdom. Sure, what's in them? Horse tranquilizers? Were they mixing fentanyl on the table next to you and then they just decided to pop the vapes in there? Like, you have no idea what you're getting. So I think one of the things about this and the quality component of it is that you can trust that medical cannabis and purchased in the legal market through a prescription gives you surety of outcome in terms of the fact that the product you're consuming is safe because it's regulated by the MHRA, and we are all held to that standard. So to me, that's like a super important component, right, that we have to work with.
Yeah, patient safety is job one. That's what we do. That's what you do. That's what we do. There is no questioning what the single most important thing is it's about patient safety and ensuring that your systems produce that outcome. Everything beyond that, of course, is a requirement for commercial success and for, we've got to sell a product, otherwise we'll go bankrupt, and we have to do a good job. But if you are not paying attention to that, then you're going to go out of business. Now, I also think that, again, hand in hand with the awareness is exactly what we're talking about, is what's in your weed. Right? You could almost do a YouTube show just on what's in your weed and do it daily, weekly, if we had a testing system in this country. There's some structural issues that need to be addressed, right? We don't have sterilization in this country. We don't really have a GMP testing lab that's really readily available. There are labs, but they're not necessarily GMP.
Yeah, so these things happen abroad, by the way. It's not the thing that happens.
So all of the products that we carry go through Eurofins or High North, full-on EU GMP certified lab. All the COAs come from there. It's like you have to go with what's on the piece of paper at the end of the day, and they're scientists. They spend a lot of time working on that. And I think the other bit about this, though, is that when you're looking at this, I think when you think about the medical cannabis space and you think about government perspective on medical cannabis, I think the experience of most people as politicians and as civil servants is that that's something I don't want to get involved with. And I think our job as an industry is to illustrate to people through compliance, EU GMP conformity, et cetera, that this is a medicine, that it works extremely well for certain conditions, and that it's something that the government and the medical establishment can trust. And I think that's the bridge that we have to cross. But I think that on our side, we're doing everything we can to make sure that happens. And I think that when you think about the future of medical cannabis in society. There's a senator from Georgia that said we should only lock up the people we're truly afraid of. And yet it seems that in society over the last couple decades, as a result of some of the machinations, political machinations of the United States, where cannabis and certain other drugs have become classified as Schedule I narcotics, pushes a political agenda and is not necessarily looking out for the best interests of people who are in society. And I think that is starting to break down slowly, but there's a tremendous benefit there. Do you really need to arrest people and lock them up for smoking medical cannabis or cannabis generally? Probably not. There are probably other people out there that you should be a lot more worried about. And I think that it also has the tremendous capacity for job creation and societal benefit in the United Kingdom. And not being from the UK, I can't comment on politics, policy, things like that. It's not my business, but I can see, and we can see from Canada, that medical cannabis really helps people. And it also creates a tremendous number of jobs. So in a society right now where you're dealing with the kind of fallout from Brexit, a changing world in terms of international trade, not just with the EU and China, but also with the United States, that this is a tremendous opportunity for job creation. You look at the Level Up the North program that was run in the UK and that it still exists to a certain extent. There are fabulous opportunities to combine offshore wind, low cost power with producing medical cannabis in a sustainable way that employs thousands of people. And right now, it's great that we're importing products from Canada, I think, and other places in the world. You guys import products from many places. It's fabulous for the economies of those places. But at the end of the day, Britain has the opportunity right in front of it to have a massive job creation opportunity and have something that also has societal benefit as well. It just requires some people to kind of get their heads around the fact that what we're talking about is something that should be normal and that works really well for people and not something that's a drug that we should run away from.
It's ultimately that stigma, isn't it? I think, and it's, we touched on this on many episodes. We've talked about stigma, but it is, we talked about awareness. I would say the awareness is so important, but the resistance factor to awareness is this stigma, is that even when you're having a conversation with a regulator or a member of the public on the street, that you might mention that cannabis is medicinal and they'll say it's just CBD, it can't possibly be THC because THC is bad. In the minds of the public and with that stigma. So how do we overcome that? Difficult question, I know.
How do we? Well, I think, I can reflect upon what we learned in Canada.
This is it.
And if you're looking at, two jurisdictions that are as similar as they could possibly be, that are not the same jurisdiction, Canada and the United Kingdom are exceptionally similar. Yeah. We are the children, our political system, our government systems, our socialized medicine. We are very much an image of this country, sort of caught between the United States and the United Kingdom. But culturally and politically, we're much more aligned with the United Kingdom than we are with the United States. And
especially now. We
can now say that, and people will now say that out loud because of the nonsense from the monster, the orange monster, and even yesterday threatening 51st state in front of our prime minister. It's like beyond the pale. How do you even respond, right? So the experience in Canada was, in my opinion, the vets having their medicines paid for by the federal government under the auspices of assisting them with their struggles with post-traumatic stress disorder from Afghanistan, which I think Afghanistan was probably a unique military experience in that you were never safe. There was always somebody above you. Unless you were on top of the mountain, then they could blast you from below. So there was no safety. And I think that there was this constant threat. And I actually worked and sold real estate in an area where there was a large base. And so I dealt
military base.
Yeah. So I worked with...
In Afghanistan?
No, in Canada.
Oh, sorry, Canada.
So in the Comox Valley. And it was a combination of active military people that I would buy and sell houses for, as well as people who had come out of the military and retired in the area, because it was considered so one of the warmest, most pleasant climates in Canada is Vancouver Island. And this was a common experience. These people were really struggling and they were all using medical cannabis. And they were getting paid for. And I think what ultimately happened is when you look at who's in the Canadian military, it's probably not so dissimilar from here. It's primarily people from rural areas, conservative communities, who are struggling to find employment in their physical area that they grew up in and are looking for opportunities that don't exist where they live. So Canada is massive, so they joined the military. Then they came back from Afghanistan and they had a lot of issues that involved prescription medicines, alcohol, and families were falling apart. And the reality is that medical cannabis became a huge part of the therapy that this particular cohort of patients was getting. And the success in it is that they were able to wean themselves off of barbiturates and opioids and reduce their alcohol consumption. It was literally saving families. And in a lot of small communities that would have been conservative and would have historically had a very negative opinion about what cannabis was. The same stigma that you can see here, we have it in small town Canada as well.
Yeah, these aren't hippie communes, it's almost the opposite.
Yeah, but when you're the uncle or an aunt or the cousin of somebody who's you can see was a disaster with these things and then has improved greatly with this thing and replaced these disasters with this thing, your whole perception of what cannabis is no longer negative. It's saving the life or improving the quality of life of somebody that you love.
Yeah.
So we knew that we could see that when Stephen Harper introduced the new program in 2012, where you were getting it from some of the big players that are still in the space today and selling cannabis.
That was when they changed from being a sort of grow your own,
to
sort yourself out, but we'll make it legal, to a much more sort of, I say prescription based. Was it prescription?
Yeah, it was prescription based, and your prescription was covered by the federal government.
So they funded it too.
That sued the federal government to get their lawsuits work. Right, they sued the federal government and they won.
Wow.
And that, in my mind, was how it all changed. Was that the medical cannabis became, which is cannabis, in case anyone's wondering.
It's all cannabis.
It is
cannabis made to medical, to pharmaceutical status.
It's cannabis, and the people using it were using cannabis, and the people around them who love them, their view of what cannabis was changed. Until we can get the medical, and that created the whole change in perception and change stigma. Until we can get people in smaller communities or in larger communities where they have a negative association with cannabis, understanding that it can improve people's quality of life. And as the numbers grow, I think you'll see that we'll actually grow at a rate that will potentially accelerate because people's stigma will leave.
Yeah. I don't think we've quite got to that tipping point here in the UK.
No, I don't believe we are at that tipping point, but I think it's something that could happen here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're all working towards it, and I would hesitate to say it, but I would hope that we're at least getting up to that tipping point.
It feels like we're moving in the right direction.
I think so. And I think, even if I look within my own family, my mom grew up in Latvia originally. They emigrated to Canada after the Second World War, fleeing the Russians.
Sure.
And another monster, different color, Stalin. And when, she was a school teacher her entire career when I was a kid and beyond that. And her opinion, if you said the word cannabis, was immediately in her mind associated with crime and jail. That was just, in our household, that was a word that was absolutely off the table. Rural community, lots of Eastern Europeans, a real mindset on hard work is what gets you through, and that's what you do. That's your life is work. So my mom got to the age of 82 and she's having trouble sleeping. And she was probably, given her background, God love you, Mom, she's probably having trouble sleeping for 25 years, but she just didn't tell anybody. So then she went to her doctor and said, I'm having trouble sleeping. And he said, well, I've got this benzodiazepine product, you can try it for sleep. And she said, oh no. She said, the ladies at the Weavers Guild, one of them got addicted to those things and had to go to rehab at the age of 80. Oh. And she said, I'm not having those. And then she said, somebody told me I could get medical cannabis. And this is well after medical cannabis legalization in 2014. It's probably 2019. Okay. And the doctor said, well, I can't recommend that, Mrs. Dobbin. I just don't know enough about it, and I don't think it would be good for you. And she said, well, I want it. So he wrote her a prescription. And then I went down to the pharmacy, and we talked about all the different oils, and she tried a tincture. Anyway, cut to a few months later, she switched from that. She goes to a dispensary. She buys a spray bottle that she does 2 pumps with. She takes it at 20 minutes to 10 at night, falls asleep at 10, wakes up at 6 in the morning. And she was sharp before, and now she's like over the top sharp, like well rested, super happy. And it's made a huge difference in her life, massive. And I've seen it in person, but this is a person who you never would have in a million years thought my mom will be, using cannabis, medical cannabis, an alternative medicine. Would not have happened. Using any medicine was generally not a good idea. Oh, I cut my arm off. Well, I'll just sew it back on. That's like our parents and the grandparents' generation that's how they think. Oh, my thumb's hanging off. Well, I'll just put a Band-Aid on it and I have to finish haying and milking the cows and doing all that stuff. It's fine, so, but, and I also think, we touched on it before we started talking, but, you think about transcendental moments in the cannabis space in the United Kingdom, and, Hannah Deacon and the other moms that were involved at the time did just such an amazing job of bringing the public awareness up. And I think that, when you look at that, you see a moment where someone took time out of her life to make a difference in the lives of many, many other people.
We're very sad today.
Yeah. And I think that the difference that she made was she just selflessly went out there and pushed for something that she knew was right. And I think, when you think about her legacy, I think a lot of people think about the fact that medical cannabis is something that is great for children. And I think you have to kind of look through that and realize that it's good for a lot of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And the journey, I think there's a long journey to go. I think that, and I think we're going to get there, but I don't know for certain. We just as a company, honestly, just try to focus every day on ensuring that we can exceed expectations with the patients, with our customers, with the clinics and the pharmacies that we serve. Whether that's making sure that the orders get out on time, whether that's trying to pack things down as fast as we can when we get them, whether it's the idea of utilizing Bovita Pack, which we've spent years doing stability programs and all kinds of other programs where we use Bovita. We did Bovita Packs because we felt that with the times involved with import permits and export permits and waiting on COAs and all the delays that you can experience, that we wanted to be able to try to improve the quality of the experience for the patient. And so, the Bovita Packs aren't free. I mean, we do this and we do these things because we're constantly trying to find ways to continue to exceed expectations. And that means looking for new products. That means potentially shedding products that we don't think are performing to the degree that they should. These are not widgets. Just because you get something one time doesn't mean you're going to get it the next time. So we have to constantly stay on top of the quality program, and we have to, I have a focus group in the country that I speak with once a month, and they are expected to give me the most brutal, honest feedback that's why they're there. I'm not looking for a pat on the back. I want to know how I can be better, how we can be better. And so we hope that with this attitude and with some hard work, and maybe someone got £5 million they want to lend us or put in our company, with a little bit of cash infusion, we could, we can carry
do
on.
a lot more, right?
Yeah, we can do a lot more. And I think it's probably the same for most companies in the UK. And I think it's really important. I think there's a gap between patient perception of what we do, and what is actually reality. Like those things on Instagram, like this is real, this is like what you think.
Yeah.
The reality is we every single company, I think, probably struggles with their finances and their cash flow, with their product quality. I don't think any company has ever brought something into the country and thought, I'm going to just bring in this horrible product and I'm going to force it upon the people. No, things go wrong. Everybody's operating with the best of intention.
Yeah, I think there's this idea that we're raking it in and that we don't care about the product we're bringing in, or it's not that case at all, is it? I mean,
no, I think that many patients do appreciate it. I do believe that there is an activist patient population that has perhaps some misconceptions, and trust me, I am friends with, know many of the active patients, YouTubers and Redditors and other people that contribute heavily online to the idea of what medical cannabis is. And I think it's important.
Because they're often doing great work.
I think it's really important. I won't name all of the names, but you know who you are. And that's not just, that's across the gamut. There's many, many people that are doing excellent work and holding my feet to the fire and the rest of the industry to the feet to the fire. I have absolutely no problem with that, and I think it should be encouraged. But I also think it's important that we have a realistic understanding of how this business works, the cost of compliance, the cost of shipping, the cost of packing, the cost of distribution, the many people that are involved in all of those chains from where the product comes from. And the fact is that I think it's fair to say that we're doing a better job in the illicit market for the same price. That's what I personally feel that we're doing. I think that we provide a better value proposition than the illicit market can offer. Now, that's not necessarily true for everybody's experience, but from my experience as someone who lives in the United Kingdom, it is. That's my personal opinion. And the feedback that we get from patients is confirming it. So, and we are very aggressive in terms of how we structure things, because we believe that if we have to get as many people to leave the illicit market and come into the regulated market for all of the reasons that we've discussed. Legal protection, knowing what's in your weed, knowing what's in your vape pen.
But also being able to talk about it as well. We're
being able to talk about it.
The YouTubers and the patient advocates who are out there. Certainly you can buy illicit products and go on YouTube and talk about it if you want to do that. But you're not going to progress sort of cannabis awareness and acceptance by doing that. But if you have a prescription and you're telling your relatives about that, you're telling the world about that.
It leads to destigmatization. And yes, we know what the medical sector wants from us. The medical sector wants pills, powders, and potions. That's what they're used to prescribing. That's what they've been trained to prescribe. We cannot get to pills, powders, and potions effectively with effective efficacy until we do the work. The first work is trying to figure out which products do what, and then getting data, and then taking that data and working on a preliminary real-world evidence trial, and then getting that data and getting that approved, and then going through a real-world evidence trial, and then trying to understand in that process what are the formats and formulations for these things and what are our target conditions. This is not going to happen overnight. This is going to take years and years and years to get there. Flour is the easiest way to get there because that's the core input of all of those materials, right? You can't get to the potions without the flour. Now, the flour, if we have enough evidence and we do things the correct way and we acquire the data responsibly, could guide us in the right direction for conditions like sleep, like the menopause, like chronic pain, like Crohn's disease, like many of the things, like ADHD, right? So, but we have to do the work to get there. We can't just magically wave a wand and have a pill that a doctor in Birmingham can prescribe because that's what he's used to prescribing. We don't know what's the best way to build that pill yet.
Yeah, exactly that. You talk about pills and potions. I was going to ask whether flour is, flour is what you're currently distributing. Yes. 100% of your product's flour at this point?
Yes.
For another 2 weeks.
Well, there we go. You're answering my question already. What is in the pipeline? What are the plans for the future? And where do you see that going as well? Not just your pipeline, but where do you see this going?
So we through Greg's outrageous tenacity and efforts, we will be bringing in a distillate vape pen.
Fantastic.
We are in stability programs on live resin pens, live resin concentrate. We're actually going to be registering that soon. Not sure what the doctors how they're going to react to that. We are in the process of getting hash worked on. We are working on a number of chewable potions that we would like to make. We can't use the word gummy, not allowed. So we're calling them chewables. Chewies.
Chewables?
Yeah, chewies.
I like
everybody's favorite Star Wars character, Chewie.
Yeah, exactly. It's furry. Pills aren't furry.
So
he's going to be on the packaging now.
Yeah, we recognize that it's not just about it's about trying to exceed expectations and give patients that products that will increase their quality of life. And it's also about trying to satisfy the needs and the demands of the medical sector and the medical industry as to what do they want, what are they comfortable prescribing. But we need to do it in a responsible way. We will also be bringing in oils and I can't use the word tincture, but oil-based medicines that have a measurable dropper. Again, it takes time to do your stability tests. It takes time to vet product. It takes time to do all of these things. But we're working towards a variety of. We believe that, in my mind, it'll be 60-40 non-flour to flour in a few years.
Well, okay. So yeah, flour is where we're at, but it's not where we're staying.
I don't believe so.
I don't think so. I think you'll see just, anecdotally in Canada, you're in the 60-40 range.
Okay, already.
Right away,
In terms
yeah.
of 60% non-flour.
Well, I think you're
40.
60%, you're at 40% whole flour, and you're
Yeah.
at 60% convenience items that are going to be vape pens and pre-rolls,
Okay, pre-rolls.
and gummies.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Which is sort of, I suppose, this percentage of that is flour if you count pre-rolls as flour. But yeah.
Yeah,
I get
but
where
no,
you're
in
coming
terms
from.
of a whole
In terms
flour,
of, yeah,
whole
separate.
flour format. So and the reason why I say that is I believe that I'm not suggesting that necessarily the flour consumers are going to leave flour in favor of an oil. What I think is they'll be using oils and other products as an augmentation to their consumption of cannabis flour. But I also believe that we have a whole world of patients out there that are not against the idea of cannabis, but they're not calling up WhatsApp and getting something dropped off at their house, and they haven't done so for decades. But if we can offer them relief from conditions that are making their lives difficult, and they want to consume it in a format that's not a flour, I think that vape pens will probably start that process, but I think we'll end up with chewables and like more customized formulations in oil and chewables that will help them achieve what they want.
Do you think flour is potentially a barrier then to progressing this? Because I think you're quite right, and it's something I've not really realised, but it's not necessarily going to appeal to everyone, is it?
No,
There's
it's
flour to grind that.
You got to grind it up. You got to go buy a $300 pound
It's a familiarity
vaporizer. It's something that they consumed in university. It's the odor of it is not welcome in the household around the kids. As we were discussing, in Canada we have backyards and basements and back sheds, and it's easy to get away from people, have a quick take your medicine, and not disturb the olfactory senses of the people that you live with or your neighbors. Whereas in the United Kingdom, it's much more compressed population. Even in small towns, your backyards are 3 meters wide, and that's the parking stall in Canada.
Here in London, yeah.
I mean, and generally you drive around the UK and you go into a town, we have 2-car garages and that are larger than homes here. So, and it's sort of actually kind of gross, actually, when you think about it.
Yeah, the sprawl of
we have a lot of stuff and a lot of space, so we don't really we don't need to hide our consumption. It's much easier, whereas in this country, and again, we were chatting about consumption lounges, I think there's a huge role for them to play in this country. But alternative delivery systems outside of the traditional flour method are less intrusive on neighbors and the people inside of your household. And I think that convenience and that discretion will translate into new patients.
Absolutely. Well, it's very exciting to hear that you've got all of that and more lined up. Before we round this off, I guess, if I can ask you, Greg, what would you say to somebody who's watching this who wants to get into the cannabis industry? What's your first piece of advice?
Yeah, don't do it. It's a bad idea. Are we okay? So
unless you like crawling on broken glass for years at a time, then
it's terrible. Yeah, it's terrible. Are we talking about someone that would like to get into the cannabis business who would like to work in the cannabis industry? Is that the basis of the question? Or are we also talking about people who might be watching that are thinking, I would like to use medical cannabis, but I don't know anything about it?
Let's start with the former, and then we'll do the next. The working in the industry.
Once again, I think this really comes down to government regulation and the ability to open up the industry to people who would love to work in it. Young people these days, my daughter's 16, she'll be going out the door to uni and then going into the job market to find exactly 0 jobs likely available in Canada after the Orange Monster is done with us, and it won't be any different here. So what is the government of the United Kingdom doing for the young people and the workers of the country? What could they be doing to advance an industry which has tremendous societal and medical benefits and that creates thousands of jobs? What are they going to do for you to allow you to get into there? Because when you think about it, it's quite a wide breadth, from marketing, Josephine, to sales, James, to electrician. You're working with plants, you're mixing the soil, all of the R&D required, all of the R&D required on the science side. Look, we would do a ton of product development in the UK if it's something that we could do. At the moment, it's really hard. So our product development at the moment is taking place in Canada. We'd rather do it here. And I think the same holds true. So I think it's important for people to hold their elected government officials accountable for the things that they want in their lives. And I think, writing to your members of parliament, doing those types of things are things that are going to advance us. I think that we have a royal family in this country who have had 2 people go through pretty terrible bouts of cancer. Were they using medical cannabis? Could it have helped them? If they did, and it did help them, maybe they want to say something about it, I'm just saying, you need people who are leaders of society to understand the benefits of this and take a moment to look at it and say, I can help young people get jobs in this country, and I can help people's lives simply by saying something that makes sense. Many years ago, prior to Sarah Palin, who's another version of the Orange Monster from America, when people thought that the world was flat, people would laugh at you if you said the world was round. And now, if you stand on a pulpit and say medical cannabis as an alternative medicine is better than an opioid that is highly addictive, and people look at you and say, you're crazy, it's a drug. Is it a drug? Or is it something that can really help society? So to me, to answer your question, I think if you're interested in working in the medical cannabis space, anybody that works for us, Sam in operations in the UK spent 2 years looking for a job in the cannabis industry and couldn't get one because there weren't any. And then one came along and he took it, and now he's since moved on and he's working with us. He had to put in real time and effort to get there. I think kind of harkening back to our film days, James and I've known James since he was 18. And we got a job on a film set one summer, and first thing we did is we volunteered, and we didn't get paid anything for about 2 months. Then we were getting paid, and 3 of us were splitting a check for $600 a week. We were working 6-day weeks. We were working 17 hours a day, and we split a check. It was 600. Was it 600 a week?
We didn't even.
We made $200 a week, and we were happy with that. But it's a little bit of the same with the cannabis business. You've got to get your foot in the door, be motivated to do it, go and talk to lots of people. And I think it's super exciting and interesting. I think it has a world of possibilities. But at this stage, with the size of the industry we've got, until it grows more, you have to get your elbows out and get in there and get interested.
Yeah, it's difficult.
Well put. Well, look, guys. One more thing before we do go. Where can our viewers find out more about you guys? I didn't even ask what the 4Cs and 4C Labs are, but I know that's on your website. So where can they find more from you guys?
I don't know. Well, we all have different 4Cs.
Oh, you will have different 4Cs.
Yes.
Yeah. Mine is the Compassionate Canadian Cannabis Company. I don't even know what his 4C is.
I can never remember. I always change them around. But the Compassionate Canadian Cannabis Company that's the one we all like.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Does the job.
And so there's our website, 4C Labs, which has virtually no information on it whatsoever because we're not allowed to put any information on it. There are other third-party entities out there that have information on our products. I'm not sure where they get the information from, but it seems to be accurate. Not always, but generally. And there's a ton of YouTube reviews and Reddit videos, Reddit comments out there.
Well, you can ask your doctor. There are a number of clinics in the United Kingdom that service medical cannabis patients specifically, and everyone knows how to use the Google, right? The Orange Monster hasn't disconnected the Google from the rest of the world yet. So while we still can, let's use it. You can look up, how do I get a medical cannabis prescription, and find out. 4C Labs products are available next day delivery anywhere in the country as long as you order by 3 p.m. from any pharmacy in the country. So no matter what your clinic says, you can get our products anytime you want.
Yeah, we actually, I believe we have 100% clinic coverage. We serve every there's only one clinic in the British Isles that we don't serve.
Cool. We won't name and shame.
No.
Oh God love them, they're just doing their own thing.
But that's another man's business is not my business to criticize. But we took a specific approach where we conscientiously decided that we did have a clinic license, and we could have opened a clinic, but we chose what is unfortunately the harder path, which is to not compete with our customers. So we conscientiously said, this is our lane. It's to find the product, to qualify the product, to validate the product, to certify the product, to do all the stability and all of the compliance around it, to bring it into the United Kingdom. And then we're going to trust that the quality of the product will speak for itself, that the patients will feel that it does exceed their expectations, they will ask for it, and then that will compel all of the clinics, many of whom, as you know, are vertically integrated and have their own supply chains, to work cooperatively with us. And that is what has happened. It's not to the degree that I would like, but it is what's happening. And that's just how we see things. We believe in staying in our lane and doing the best job that we can. I'm not smart enough to do any other lanes. I mean, the cultivation, we could add cultivation because we have a cultivation license on Guernsey. But to open a clinic or to do what Zeal do in terms of packing, I'm not doing that.
James and I aren't capable.
I'm not doing it. I'm not
bridge too far.
Yeah.
No, that's fair. I think when this industry first launched, there were like 2 or 3 companies, and everyone said they do everything. And I think what's happened is you've got experts at particular parts of the supply chain.
Yeah.
And I think you guys, in terms of the distribution side of things, absolute experts, sourcing products, being great flowers to the UK.
Just that's what we like it, and I love working with patients. I had a chat with a YouTuber this morning. I love to hear the feedback. I get texts from the patients. It's very rewarding to feel like you're helping people improve their quality of life.
Brilliant. Well, thank you both for spending so much time talking to us today and telling us all about fantastic work that you're doing. It's massively appreciated. And thank you everybody for watching this episode of Grow Conversations.
Thanks, Alex.
Well, thank you very much. I just want to say as well, before we do go, and you probably may have caught on from Greg's comments earlier, that I'm very sad to hear today that Hannah Deacon passed away this morning. We got that news just a couple of hours before we started filming here today, and certainly it's hit us all very hard, and it's a very sad thing to have happened. And I suppose just want to take this moment to say a huge thank you and utmost respect to Hannah Deacon, the family and people close to her, and everyone who campaigned for cannabis medicines and has helped progress that. There really is nobody who has been more integral to this industry, and without her we simply wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation and doing the work that we're doing. So just wanted to take this moment to pay our respects to a fantastic woman who sadly is no longer with us.
Yeah, that's well said, Alex. And I think that, when you think about the work she's done, and you said, what can people do to get involved in the cannabis business? And I touched a little bit about writing your MP and being proactive. And if you're a member of society that has some punch, be proactive. I think, in honor of Hannah, we have always, maintained that we would bring excellent quality medicines to not just children, but the people of the UK that are in product forms that are easy to consume, well researched, etc. We promised that to her 6 years ago when we first met her, and that has not changed. So I just think for us, we will continue to encourage ourselves to perform and deliver on that promise. And I think for everybody else, I think, you have to do your part. If you believe in something, in the spirit of kind of Hannah's ability to just go out there and pound her message home, I think we can all take a page from her book and try to emulate her as best we can, which is a tough task.
Yes, she's greatly missed. She was an important part of the 4C Labs family. We've been very close for 6 years, and she was absolutely integral to the sector. And there's, I think we're all in shock, really. I don't think many people knew or expected to get this news today. And it's hard to express the condolences that you can give to her family, her children. It's just an absolute tragedy, and I'm speechless, really. And I don't know. It's just horrible. It's a true tragedy.
It is to her.
Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you everyone for watching. We'll be back with another episode very soon.